What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Coming at you guys with another strategy segment, and this one will be on semi-bluffing. This will be pertaining specifically to situations either where we are shoving all in, or we are betting the turn in a situation where we know, hypothetically, that we are not going to get raised. So, what we're doing is we're solving for how often our opponent needs to fold given our bet size, the pot size, and the equity. So this is going to be a really useful calculation for calculating semi-bluff shoving. Now, the equation is fold frequency, or fold percentage needed, equals EV when called divided by the EV when called minus the pot size. And the shorthand for that is F equals EV divided by EV minus P. So next we're going to find our EV when called. This is a fairly simple equation that I've broken down into two simpler equations. So first thing we need to calculate is how much we win when we hit. And this is pretty simple. We take the pot plus the size of villain's call and then multiply that by our equity. So essentially the pot will be a certain size and our equity represents the frequency we're going to win that pot. So the shorthand equation for this is P plus C multiplied by E is how much we win when we hit. How much we win when we miss will be our bet multiplied by 1 minus our equity. So we'll be losing our bet, and we'll be doing that at a frequency of 1 minus our equity. So that's the times that we miss. So the shorthand for that equation is B multiplied by 1 minus E. And the total equation for calculating EV when called is the pot plus your opponent's call multiplied by your equity minus the bet multiplied by 1 minus our equity. So let's go ahead and do an example. So we've got a pretty simple example here. Our pot size is $10, our bet is $5, and we have 15% equity when we are called. So all we have to do is figure out our EV when called and then plug that into the equation. So our EV when called will be the pot, which is $10, plus the call, which will be, in this case, $5. It's important to note that if you're in a situation where you're shoving all in and you have your opponent covered, that you enter in the amount that they are actually calling and not your bet size, because you need to take into account effective stacks. That will be very important. And if you don't do that, your calculation will be significantly off. So, going on, we multiply that by our equity, which is 15%. Now we subtract, because this next amount is going to be the amount we're going to lose, we subtract B multiplied by, B, our bet, multiplied by 1 minus our equity when called, which is 0.15. So we'll get that we're going to lose $2 when we're called on average. Now we just need to plug that in the equation to figure out how often our opponent needs to fold. So we're losing $2. We're plugging it into this equation here. F equals EV divided by EV minus P. So -2 divided into -2 minus the pot size, which is $10, and we'll get that we need our opponent to fold around 17% of the time for this to be a neutral EV bluff. So we've calculated the break-even frequency of how often they need to fold. If our opponent folds more than this frequency, then our bet will be plus EV. If he folds less than this frequency, then our bet will be minus EV. Okay, so moving on to example number 2, I've changed the pot size to $240, our bet size to $160, and our equity when called to 35%. So let's first solve for our equity when called. So we take our pot, which is $240, plus our opponent's call size. Again, remember to take into account effective stack sizes. Multiply that by our equity, which in this case is 35%. Now we subtract from that the amount we're going to lose when he calls. So the bet size, 160, multiplied by 1 minus our equity. Oh, and I forgot to put the equal sign at the beginning. So the answer is 36. We have $36 in equity when called. That's a positive number, which is different from our last situation, which was a negative number. So we'll see the effect of that in a second. So we plug that in to the equation. Again, we're solving for f, and the equation is the EV when called, 36, divided by 36 minus the pot size, which is 240. And we'll get a negative 17.65%. Now, what does that mean? What the negative number means is that our opponent doesn't have to fold at all in order for our bet to be plus EV, because we have so much inherent equity in the pot. So therefore, any situation or any time that you solve this equation and the number is negative, your opponent does not need to fold at all in order for the bet to be plus EV. Okay guys, so next I'll show you guys the form that I've built to help you guys learn how to use this equation. So I've created this form for you guys to practice this new skill. I'll upload it to Google Documents as a template, and it'll be listed underneath this video post on my blog. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll link to the blog post where you can download it. So just open up the spreadsheet once you've made a copy of it, and go to Form, and then go to Live Form. That'll create a form, and I'm just going to go ahead and enter in 10 random numbers for my answers. So I've entered in my answers, and I click Submit. And then I just need to go back to the form, and we'll see my answers listed right here for questions 1 through 10. And then over to the right, you'll see the answer key. Google Docs does this weird thing where it separates each time that there's a new answer entered, but you can cross-check your answers versus the correct answers and see how well you did. Okay, so that's the quiz, and a couple more things to review, and then we'll be all done. Okay, so a couple things to review. Remember, we only use this calculation in situations where we're all in, or when we are betting the turn and are sure that we're not going to get raised, hypothetically. When we're stating our equity, we need to make sure that we're stating our equity when called. So you're not stating your equity versus your opponent's range, you're stating your equity versus your opponent's calling range. This is important. Make sure to take into account effective stacks. So if your opponent has a smaller stack than you, then you need to take that into account when you're calculating your bet size and the amount your opponent is going to call. And lastly, if our villain folds more than the number that we come up with, the solution, then it is a plus EV bet. I'd like to thank Jimmy Jack from 2plus2 from the Poker Theory forum for responding to my post and helping me understand this situation, because to be honest guys, I didn't understand this situation completely until I had gotten some help from him. So thank you from the guys over at Poker Theory and Jimmy Jack, and that's it. So have fun and enjoy. Bye.